Alright, welcome back to my videos. So, I wanted to talk about my writing process in this video. There's been a while since I posted a video now, and you see probably the trim of the beard has happened, and it's fucking great. Basically, in this video I wanted to talk about my writing process and how it has sort of like changed over like since I began. So I began the 9th June 2025, and I decided I wanted to build like book series and go into like writing, specifically fantasy writing at the moment, and that's what I'm like doing when it comes to my writing process. So I became very like hyper focused and perfectionistic, tried to like figure out what is the perfect writing routine. How does J.K. Rowling's routine look like? How does George R. Martin's routine look like? What did Tolkien do, etc. I tried to use Claude, ChatGPT to figure out like what is the perfect routine I can use to sort of get like this advantage in writing and possibly even get a better result than these people as well, because well, my writing routine is better, and if my input is extremely well, my routine is just perfect, then I will like be more effective than J.K. Rowling in the earlier days. For example, if when she had 1 hour to spare for writing because of her like life situation, etc. It might seem like very egotistical, like the way I like fought around this, especially in the beginning. But I found out like after a couple of months that doing, for example, 4 hours, just starting off 4 hours as a beginner writer, don't have any experience, and thinking that I could sustain that and use that as an advantage to beat anyone was just ridiculous, because well, doing 4 hours makes you despise the thing, especially in the start when it's the hardest. So it's much smarter to do less and eventually like build up. I've sort of now realized that it's all basically like a video game. It's when you think about writers who do 4 hours, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of deep work, and it's not, I don't think humans can do it all in one like line of focus. I think there has to be like a couple of breaks here and there. But in general, when you think about people who can sustain focus for a long time, those are people who have years and years of experience with focusing single-handedly on one thing. And that's not a beginner. You don't start, or I don't start there at all. I probably would have made more progress if I began just doing 1 hour. Maybe possibly just trying to master 45 minutes, and that's it. If I kept that sustained, I'll be much better off than I ended up being. Well, so back to the real point. My writing routine now, which I'm using to build this book series of mine, is that I wake up 7:30. I have this small ritual thing, which I learned that can like make the mind flow more easily into a flow state. I learned it from Cal Newport, the Deep Work book. And I wake up 7:30, do some regular bathroom things, go on the toilet, etc. Then I take a coffee downstairs, brewing it, and then take it up, a water bowl, and then I journal. Well, I just drink some coffee here, some water here. Then I journal for 20 minutes. Then I do a 10-minute meditation after that journaling right away. And then I just write 1 hour. I set the timer, and the reason why I put always a 1 hour timer is that brings a bit of urgency. I always think that you have to, even though it's a creative form of work, that you have to have this urgency sense. If it was, for example, I tried doing 3 hours, 4 hours, just no real deadline, just I write and full stop at 12 o'clock. And that for me didn't really lead anywhere, in my opinion. I instead found that I much prefer to do 1 hour and then take a little break, or have it as a bit of an evaluation point. So when I get done with the 1 hour, I think, oh, am I curious enough to just continue? And then I just ramble on. If I actually have the motivation and I want to continue, I want to stay in the flow, and I know I can if I just continue. But most often I take that 20-minute break. I sit out. I just take some fresh air from the window, put my head out and take some fresh air. I don't go downstairs or anything. I try to stay in this environment for the entire morning until 11 a.m. That's when I allow myself to go downstairs, do some cardio, do some training, etc. Get the body moving. I've been sitting a long while, and yeah, back to the writing routine. So after I've done the 1 hour writing, that's from 8:20 to 9:20. I take a 20-minute break, then I go back and do another 1 hour session, and then I take a little break, and then the clock is 11, and then I'm done. So it's basically 2 hours of work, or like deep work, and in my mind that sounds pretty overcomable. Overcomable is not a fucking word, I think. Manageable, and yeah, I think if we want to sustain the practice of writing, there has to be this sense of, oh, I can do that, and you set that amount of time that you think that those thoughts off, and you set that as like how long your writing is. Maybe it's just one session, 45 minutes, or maybe one session, 30 minutes, and you work your way up. Maybe you, as like me, find that having 1 hour is a little too little, and you want to have, for example, 2 deep work sessions, 1 hour and 1 hour break in between, and then you're done. But the main thing is that writing is very subjective, and that's something I learned like way late. Yeah, I tried figuring out like, what does J.K. Rowling do, George R. Martin do? Those are my biggest like role models when it comes to writing. What is their routine? But again, they made their own routine, which works for them. There is, of course, some principles like having a bit of a ritual that you do every single day to prime your mind before you start writing. I think that's a very good principle to follow. And that might just be that you start writing right away. It can be that you wake up and then you sit down at your desk, and that's the priming, and then you get to work. But again, it's very subjective. You have to explore and test things and figure it out for yourself. You have to test different tiny habits that you do maybe before writing, or that you just test going into the writing right away. But then again, the question is, what the fuck do you do when you're writing? Like, how do you build a story at all? How do you like the writing process? Everyone talks about, I sit down with coffee and I start writing, but what does writing look like? What's the different stages? That's also a thought of like a problem I've had, and yeah, I figured that for myself. Since I'm at the beginning of my story, I've sort of like taken inspiration from J.K. Rowling, and what I'm considering as writing at the moment is much more me getting raw material down and just brain dumping, world building basically, and trying to reverse engineer and construct the story. Because I find myself that I actually enjoy being more of an architect type of person, and even though I might outline a scene, I feel like I'm going on to an adventure when I start writing it. But as for now, I've mainly been just trying to get as much raw material down, because it's six books I plan to make in this book series, and I need fucking raw material. I need relevant raw material. I need to build the locations like in my mind. I need to figure out the characters. Of course, I've heard that you can figure out your characters when you write scenes, and I believe that's true. But I also found that whenever I try to just sit down and the first thing I do is start writing scenes or chapters, that always led me to like being blank-minded. And then to like learn how to get quicker into the writing of scenes and chapters when that's more of like the thing you're going to do, to discover your world, etc. Or in my case, when I have more of the basis or like understanding of what I want. This is a fucking rant. If when I have a lot of the world building that I need to actually make a story, which I don't fully have, then I'll be more and more into drafting scenes and chapters to discover more about the characters, etc. Yeah. But I found that because most of the time when I've been writing, I've been trying to just draft scenes and chapters, but I don't feel like that have led me so much to where I wanted to go. Even though I've improved in writing scenes and chapters, and that's a big important part because it's the main thing if you want to create books. And yeah, I found that doing some outlining, some brainstorming around the world, and sinking yourself deep into the world by that manner you start doing that. I found that personally for me, it's easier to write scenes, and especially if I outline and prepare like some short points of what the scene will consist of, then it's much easier to get writing. And that's actually something I learned from Abby Ammons. That's a writer YouTuber I've been following. This is no promotion, but still, she's fucking great and she has good advice. So I learned that preparing and outlining, that can actually help you get started with writing easier. Get you faster into actually typing down words. So I hope that made sense when it comes to my writing process. I don't have that much more than that. The rest of the day is more movement based, going to the gym, doing cardio, filming these videos, speaking, improving my English, performing basically. And again, that's another creative pursuit, but the main is writing. And I think writing is very good because you start to understand yourself. And I think when you find a writing process which you enjoy waking up to, and you just feel excited before doing, that's a fucking fun thing. That's like you playing a game basically. I learned something else from one called Josh on YouTube, where you basically, as a child when you played around, etc., you basically make your own playground where you just think of things and you think up stories, ideas, and then you build them and ship them out through the world as like a contribution, etc. So yeah, that's my writing process. Hope you got some value out from that, and see you in the next video. Take care.